Welcome back to Paris, where Fnatic and H2K are fighting in the third place decider. Now, remember that we're going to start the countdown for the finals at 4:30 p.m. Central European Summertime tomorrow with a pre-match show from the arena. Be sure to join us as we look ahead towards the fight between G2 and Misfits Gaming. But that is for tomorrow, gentlemen. Today, H2K have already drawn first blood against Fnatic. They have started this series, for some surprisingly, with a win. And I think it's a good look.
And it was just great to see a bit of a return to form for Fnatic. The fact that we talked about how they were so good at investing resources into the middle lane. We talked about how H2K just seemed to revolve so well around getting Febiven a good lead and setting him up for success.
Overall, a solid performance, but as you mentioned as well, Fnatic trying once again to play around the bottom side of the map, but if it is that predictable, if H2K can consistently have a strategy to shut it down, can they just do it better? Can they out-execute? What are the options now as we look to game 2?
You could go mid, try that. Like, every team right now is finding success against Fnatic by going mid lane. I didn't even think that H2K's comp was great at ganking mid lane in the early game, but they sent so many people into that mid lane over and over and over.
They even sent an arrow there.
Even an arrow.
Hold on, you didn't think Sejuani was good. You didn't think Sejuani, but Sejuani, Cho'Gath, a Rakan together.
And Ash arrow. So eventually they got the kills they needed. Cassiopeia could not leave the lane in time, and then every single fight in the side lane was 5 members of H2K versus 4 members of Fnatic, with Caps still stuck in that mid lane.
And as we enter picks and bans, Vedius looks like H2K might have heard you. That at least not going to go into the hands of Broxah will remain perma-banned in the series thus far. Interestingly, Fnatic taking away the J4 as well.
Now, I think it would be smart for H2K if they actually banned away either the Trist or the Xayah here, force Fnatic into banning away something like the Rakan, and then you guarantee a strong AD carry in favor of H2K. Not the AD carry I was expecting, but it seems to me that their intention right now is to actually first pick the Tristana, but there's the risk that's only because they're expecting either a Rakan or a Xayah ban to come out from the side of Fnatic.
Well, Fnatic can also just give away one of those 2 champions, as you said, and pick the other one. I think Tristana ban here is the standard thing. They're not going for it though, so instead they give Tristana over to H2K. Now, most teams in the world, they say if Tristana is open, we first pick it. There's just no real like insane hard counters that makes it unsafe to do.
Maybe Sivir, but that's
that's
counter,
fine.
Right?
You can definitely still play that. So Tristana is always a good first choice here. Will Rekkles just take the Xayah again? There will be no Rakan for him to pair it with, but the Xayah itself was successful.
I feel like we're just going to see another Gragas come out from the side of Fnatic.
I like
something that they put a lot of focus on. But now we get to see sOAZ on a playmaker. This is something that I was super passionate about in Game 1, giving sOAZ the freedom to be more of a carry and have more of an impact.
And let's be clear here, not just Game 1. Obviously, the broadcast couldn't hear us, but Vedius, you've been talking to us about this constantly. Jarvan or Gnar. We want to see sOAZ on Jarvan or Gnar. Now it is finally in his hands, backed up by the Xayah as well. sOAZ now on a playmaking champion.
Do you want to remind us what his win rate on Gnar was during the regular season, Deficio?
100%.
100%. Quite
7-0.
7-0. This man is quite good at the champion, and it feels like Fnatic are pretty good at playing around him when he does so.
Oh, okay. Odoamne is always been one of the big Rumble players here in Europe, and when other players didn't like certain matchups, he said, no, you can play this as Rumble for sure. The Gnar used to be a pick that we saw like years ago, like picked against the Rumble specifically because you would win the side lane later. But Odoamne, he knows that he can win the matchup in the early game, and that's what he's looking for here. Strong early game with this Rumble.
Sejuani as well, the follow-up pick from Jankos. Rumble, one of the most banned champions against H2K, does make it through the picks and bans, and with the tank meta, it's easy to kind of forget about this pick.
You know what I would like to see from Fnatic? Syndra. I think Syndra is the kind of champion where you have really good laning phase for Caps, you have great setup as well if you actually want to start playing around the mid lane.
But Gragas, Deficio, we need to get Broxah on the Gragas again.
In terms of meta, Gragas, of course, makes a lot of sense, but it's just not been a successful pick in playoffs for Broxah at all. This game, though, there is a Gnar on the top side, so they have a bit of a split pushing threat. They still have the Xayah just like before, which we saw do really well in the laning phase. Broxah here needs to find at least one lane to play around in this game here.
And I just want it to be away from the bottom lane. It's not like Rekkles and Jesiz can't carry. Sure, we've seen them do it multiple times, but that was often when there was a huge investment from not only the jungler, but also players like sOAZ and Caps roaming down to the bot side to help set them up for success. Now, if you're Fnatic, I would not be against seeing something like a Taliyah on Caps, so that he has the freedom to roam both bot and top. And if you ban away some of the power pick mid laners, things like the Syndra that can threaten to shut you down, I think it gives Caps more freedom to set up his silence for success and become a big carry himself.
Problem is just so many of these mid laners on 7-16 after the Taliyah nerfs with the mana cost on Q have stepped away from her, really put her much further down in priority. In theory, I definitely agree. Like, pick a mid laner where you don't need to play around the mid lane, but this mid laner goes to you. Galio mid lane could actually also be a champion that, in how Fnatic likes to play the game, that should work for them, but it's not been a pick we've seen from Caps at all.
Also, Galio, Gragas, Gnar. We've seen teams go into that composition.
We saw this from Misfits.
Yes, and this is the composition where, yeah, you can execute beautifully and it'll work, but if you go to late game, you do not have reliable damage threats outside of the Xayah. But Fnatic, I don't want to say they're back to the corner, but they need to figure out something, and if our predictions are right, it needs to be more playmaking coming in from somewhere on the map.
So right now, Fnatic, they have a fair amount of engage in the form of Gragas, and so instead they're just going to go for a little bit more peel on Jesiz.
This actually means that Chei could play Lulu or Karma, which is fantastic with Tristana because you have this massive attack speed steroid already. So having an Ardent Sensor support next to it is really, really good. And Janna will not really be a threat against like a Lulu or a Karma specifically. I prefer the Lulu above the Karma. So I really like this from H2K saying, great, we get like one of the strongest 2v2 lanes in the late game now because we have a hyper carry with the Lulu protecting and buffing her.
And I think it fits nicely into the teamfight composition of H2K as well. Right now, they have an AP threat up in the top lane and an AD carry in the form of Tristana. There's a fair amount of AP from the Sejuani too, so maybe they just want to round it out with a bit of mid lane threat in the form of
I have a prediction, gentlemen. Bond of Stone, Sejuani, double Ardent Sensor.
Could very well
We've
be.
seen it. I hate it. It makes me hate solo queue, but we've seen it, and I think with double AD carries, it is a possibility.
But with all of the European mid laners that played Lucian, H2K was the team that found the most success with it. Febiven was regarded as one of the best Lucian players in Europe, and I think that this is still a very good composition for the side of H2K.
Oh, it's a fantastic comp.
Yes.
I love H2K's draft. It's really, really good. My only concern with it is how difficult it can be to execute Rumble. Because Rumble will lose the side lane pressure once we get later into the game, and he needs to then have really good setups in team fights. And the only engage they have is right now Jankos on Sejuani. If he nails it, however, they have a very, very strong team fighting comp. It is just a little bit difficult to actually execute flawlessly.
You talk about that pressure on Jankos' shoulder. He had a fantastic game one. We can't take that away from him, but everyone was there to help the team out. Very much a team game. Being the sole party responsible for starting fights in your favor has to feel like a lot on your shoulders.
And we can actually also turn that over to Fnatic. It is the jungler who is the main engage with the Gragas, but sOAZ can have engage on this Gnar as well if he has some really good setups with Mega Gnar. Jesiz, he's on the Janna. Reminder here, Fnatic banned 2 supports to set up the blind pick Janna. They invested 2 bans on that instead of banning things like Lucian, you know, with the Rumble pick already being locked in. And the Janna still just got evenly matched by the Lulu, so they did actually not get an advantage through the second phase bans and then the blind pick Janna. It is just an even match where Chei's more than happy to play Lulu here.
We'll have to assume Fnatic has something cooked up, something up their sleeve coming into this game 2. Do not want to drop another game against H2K. Want to turn the series back in their favor. You can see the players ready. The crowd rallied. French casters consistently hyping them up. The wave coming out as well. Gotta love the crowd. And as we get into game 2, win conditions, Vedius. I want to talk about them. I want to hear about them. What does each team need to do?
So the big thing about Lucian is you really want him to have a good start. In the real late game, when you consider how much value he has compared to other utility mages, he's not really the strongest. He doesn't have a huge amount of burst. He doesn't provide a huge amount of CC. But in the early game, he wins pretty much all trades. He has great sustain, and he's an AD carry. So he's actually pretty effective at taking down those early towers too when he has a bit of support. It's a very good lane to play around, and you can see that Caps is respecting that once again by going for the cleanse. But Fnatic, they can do a very similar thing themselves.
Fnatic, with their composition here, if they get towards the late game with Gnar and Gragas as the front line and Janna has the big protection in the back, they can try and set up Caps and Rekkles for success. But getting to that late game will be difficult because if you look at the lanes, you have Rumble winning the top lane early game. You have Lucian winning the mid lane early game. And bot lane as well. Tristana Lulu is a very strong early lane. It is extremely difficult for Fnatic right now to get a clear advantage from the laning phase. And when this team has been put under pressure in the early game before, they have struggled. Because again, Broxah is not the person who finds that crazy gank that sets a lane ahead. He often relies a lot on the current success of the Fnatic players and where he can then go and further push that advantage forward.
But I still think that when you have a Syndra, this is a good lane from which you could look to play around. At the very least, try and exert some kind of early pressure. And that's just what I want to see from Broxah. Try and either set up ganks in the mid or in the top half of the map.
Yeah, that's why we like Syndra in general. It is very easy for Febiven, though, in this game to just go Hexdrinker. And be like, hey, Gragas AP damage, Syndra AP damage, this Hexdrinker plus my mobility as a Lucian and a heal is going to make it very easy for him to actually try and stay alive. Fnatic, though, again, when you have Syndra, you can definitely play around her. It is much harder in this game than normal because of that Lucian pick.
And additionally, we can see the bot lane already suffering a lot here, at least until level 2s start to come in. Rekkles utilizing the strength of Xayah and the clean cuts just to bully Nuclear out. A lot of control here. And the early lane matchup expected it to go much more even, but Rekkles clearly putting the pressure on. And we talked a lot about ganking avenues. In game 1, we said, hey, there's no way it goes to the mid lane. Mid lane showed up. Now this game may be a little bit harder to predict, or easier in the case of the Syndra. But I think, as you mentioned before, big expectations just to see where Broxah is going to go, because we know Jankos has proven already in this series that he can make plays.
I look forward to seeing Jankos' performance once again. He was a big player of question. We talked a lot about how well he would perform under pressure. This is a big stage. This is a lot of people. Would he be able to live up to the hype that Jankos has built up for himself during the regular season? And he did so beautifully. Now coming into game 2, he's picking exactly the same champion, slightly different composition around it, but still very good scaling and team fighting later on. And he's already getting himself a bit of an early lead by going for the invade.
He's abusing the fact that his 2 solo laners are winning early, as we talked about. They have the push, they have a deep ward place to spot Broxah, and that's, again, when you can invade. He's gonna find him now.
Looking for it. I'm just gonna
2 ships passing in the wind.
We talked about it, that's the high five. Hey, you finished your first clear, hey, me too. Gonna have it come out. Now Jankos gonna go back into his jungle to find 2 full camps waiting for him, so definitely a small advantage for the Gragas.
But that top lane play was also very important for Jankos to make, because just look at where Odo is right now in the wave. You can see how far he's pushed up and he's yet to ward. He got information of where Broxah was, and it allowed him to now put his ward down in the tri-bush, and he has a little bit more freedom to continue playing the lane the way he wants to, and he's not at risk of an early gank from Broxah.
Really good pressure, though, from Fnatic's bottom lane. They won the level 1 trade. That's why they're currently sitting with that CS advantage. Broxah is around mid with the Syndra here. Can he do it?
To keep our eyes on the gank. Talk about Jankos in just a moment.
He just dashed forward.
Forward. What are you doing? Broxah's here. Down he goes, and first blood drops for Caps.
I mean, he didn't have a ward. He did not know that Broxah was around the mid lane. Caps stopped his recall, returned out into the mid lane, and Febiven, oh man, he just fell for it.
And this is exactly what we wanted to see from Broxah. Yes, you can get yourself an early Hexdrinker, but what does it matter if you go back to base and you don't have the gold for it? Really good early investment, but also just a punishment of the overextension from Febiven in the 1v1.
Oh, and sOAZ now starting to bully out Odoamne as well. With the mid laner dead, all the pressure starts to fall apart, and I thought we heard Paris get loud last game when H2K were dominating, but you can hear it might just be a Fnatic-favored crowd right now. They exploded at that first blood for Caps.
And it feels fantastic to see the early gank mid with the Syndra setup. The adaptation from Fnatic, it actually worked in the one game they beat Misfits in the semifinal. Game 3, they picked the Syndra mid with the least and they started camping it. This time it is Broxah and Gragas, and it doesn't matter how much mobility you have as a Lucian. Yep. If it's used aggressively to try and win a trade, you will obviously die to that gank here. Febiven did not expect the jungler to be around and thought maybe he could go for that kill.
A little bit unfortunate. Febiven, we talked about wanting to see more from him, wanting to see those hyper carry style plays. He had a fantastic Corki game, maybe still living a little bit too much in the past where he was the Fed, where he could go in for these aggressive plays, because right now, yes, he has a lot of strength, but giving up early and giving the enemy a lost chapter just feels so bad. And
just look where Caps is keeping the lane too. He's always just not quite under his tower, but close enough that Febiven, if he wants to keep the push going, he has to overextend. And this means that Caps, he's always got that threat of, hey, you don't know if my jungler is here, and if he comes out again, we will kill you, especially now that Caps has got that level 6 mark. So I think Caps is playing this lane beautifully, and given that the pressure that the bottom lane of Fnatic have already built themselves, they don't need that early investment from Broxah, so I think Fnatic are playing this early game very nicely. But now let's see how H2K can respond, because Odo, he's still doing well in that 1v1 top. There's the potential for them to set up a dive, as long as sOAZ is in that mini Gnar form.
Going to be harder and harder, though, as he gets to that level 6. A lot more threat, but Odoamne with the equalizer, a very powerful tool. Looks like they may once again try to give it to mid lane. Jankos backing off. Broxah thinks it's just a battle for the Scuttle Crab. He's going to back off in the end, not wanting to take any risks.
Yeah, sOAZ already called that Odoamne is missing from the top lane. TP was used earlier back to lane, so it's not like Odoamne randomly recalled. Broxah played it very safe there, just checking with his Q. Meanwhile, again, that bottom lane, the fact that Fnatic won the level 1 and level 2 so hard here gave him a large CS advantage for Rekkles and Jesiz. A good start again, as you said, Vedius across the board here. Jankos, though, hits level 6 very soon, and that's where you can start seeing some return fire.
Wondering where he's going to show his face. And we saw Nuclear and Chei fall into a similar deficit in the previous game. The Xayah has looked very good for Rekkles, and while that weakness, we've seen this bot lane kind of collapse before. It didn't really show itself in the previous game. Could be a concern here, where they don't quite have the same utility from Nuclear when it comes to these later fights.
Broxah should not be able to find another gank top without being spotted first, because there's so many wards invested from H2K here on the top side. He did show. Jankos is then on the bottom side here trying to see if he can maybe steal away a camp.
Blue buff just spawns. Jankos will get sight of that, turning right back around. He's going to be happy to pick that one up.
And keep your eyes on the bottom lane for H2K. They pushed in to make sure that Rekkles and Jesiz wouldn't be able to follow as Chei goes into support. You have the 2-man unit of H2K getting a very safe steal here, and Broxah, he's nowhere in the vicinity to try and challenge, so clean steal for H2K. Yeah,
I really did not like Broxah showing top lane, because as we just said here, like, it should be completely warded in the river by H2K, and he walks up, sweeps the first brush, he's like, oh yeah, there's a ward. Wait a minute, I just showed top lane right now, and the blue buff is spawning that my mid laner, Syndra, really wants to get if she wants to keep trying to win this mid lane. I think Broxah right there ends up selling his own jungler or own mid lane a little bit, and it actually ends up costing them that buff.
But we still have to remember that Broxah already having much more of an impact in Game 2 compared to Game 1, because in Game 1, in terms of mid lane pressure, he only gave Caps about 12.3% jungle proximity, which is pretty low. It is a very short amount of time. And when you compare that to the amount of jungle pressure Jankos gave, he gave a whopping 27.5%, really setting up Febiven to success. The sOAZ is now going for a 1v1, but just walks away.
Setting himself up for success all on his lonesome. Doesn't need a jungler. sOAZ confident in this matchup, clearly. Maybe Rumble can have a bigger impact with that equalizer, but Gnar also very much a teamfight threat.
I mean, sOAZ actually slightly winning on CS in this lane is very impressive. Whenever you talk to the top laners about Rumble versus Gnar, it's always Rumble dominating early game. They're trying now to set up a dive here against the Gnar.
Forward Bull is going to connect. That's a mini Gnar. So vulnerable to these dives. They're moving forward, but it's the double bounce. Mario partying his way out. sOAZ, can he make it the flash forward? Jankos gonna get that kill.
And Jankos, he finally makes a gank work, but now Fnatic, they're moving into the bottom side. They want to try and find an answer down onto this tier 1 tower.
Moving for more. Gragas is ready with the setup. Flash and body slam available, but Nuclear and Chei, they're not having any of it. It looks like they're just gonna grab the tower in the end on the side of Fnatic.
Good use of Caps' pressure in the mid lane as well. You can see on your minimap how Febiven had to move after the Syndra already left. He's here now. TP is available from Odoamne's side, but there's no wards behind that he can use easily, only the one in the river, and he decides not to go for it.
10 minutes in now, we see the gold lead start to grow from Fnatic almost exclusively from that tower first blood. Kills still traded 1-for-1 after that play on the top side of the map. Fnatic still feel like they come out on top in the end, but maybe Rumble getting that early assist will help him start to win in this matchup that we kind of expect him to.
I mean, Gnar, again, with items, will always end up having more control in side lane, so sOAZ doesn't even care about Odoamne getting an assist. He's just happy that his bot lane in 2v2 are currently dominating Nuclear and Chei and making it very easy for Fnatic to go and just cross-map. Like, that was such an easy tower for him to pick up as soon as they saw Jankos top lane, and it's all due to the work done by Rekkles and Jesiz in the 2v2, and the fact that Broxah and Caps got that early kill in mid as well.
And now a very brave call from the side of H2K. Jankos starting up the Dragon, but it looks like it could just be the hard leash coming in for the Fnatic lineup as they want to clean this one up, and Jankos is just going to walk away. Very questionable source. Jesiz canceling the backs as well. Massive loss of tempo on the side of H2K.
Febiven, he was back in base. He was buying his Cutlass, and because H2K did not have 4 members ready to fight, they decided to just back away and give away that Dragon. So Fnatic, they gained themselves another advantage and extend that early lead.
H2K expected Fnatic's bottom lane to go top lane. They thought it was going to be just a swap to the top side because there is no tower in the bottom lane for them to kill. And therefore they're like, sure, we can take this Drake while they're going on top lane and we might lose a tower for it, but at least we get Infernal Drake. Fnatic on the other end has said, that's an Infernal Drake. We value that very highly, so they're going to go back to the bottom lane and secure it. So basically, H2K, they took a gamble. It did backfire because Fnatic was aiming for that Drake themselves.
And things aren't too bad for H2K quite yet, but they do need to tighten up. They do need to find a few plays of their own. So now that the team is looking a little more aggressive, now that Broxah is looking to make a little bit more impact, things are a little bit more difficult for H2K, not quite as free of a lead as they found in that game 1.
So my only concern for H2K is that Febiven is a little bit behind on this Lucian. Now that doesn't mean that he's completely irrelevant. 20 minutes into the game, that Lucian is still going to be valuable in a few of these fights, but for the rest of H2K...
Oh, the entire crowd saw that.
All of Paris.
For the rest of H2K, they're still scaling very well. You have Rumble, you have Sejuani, you have Tristana, all supported also by the Lulu, who's very likely working towards that Ardent Sensor, as you can see in our itemization. So H2K's scaling is still very good. They still have plenty of win conditions to take advantage of as the game progresses, even though they're in this early deficit.
So Rekkles is once again in the bottom lane. They're not trying to rush down another tower. He gets jumped.
Whimsy in the health pick is going to give a decent amount of damage, combined with the ult. Nuclear just looking to bully him out of lane. Stun does come out from Caps to interrupt the culling, but small bits of aggression all across the map, trying to put the pressure down as the remaining members of H2K start up that Rift Herald.
Yeah, and again, with Odoamne pushing that top lane, they can actually go for it. Broxah is around, but he's just doing a camp instead of contesting because Caps can't really leave the mid lane due to the push here from Lucian. It is still interesting that Fnatic are going back to that bottom lane with the 2v2. It made sense with the Infernal Drake, but now they're just going in to push out the bottom lane and then move Rekkles and Jesiz towards the mid lane and try and play for that mid-tier 1.
They're not Deficio, they're still sticking it for the 2 versus 2.
Well, normally that's what you would do, but I guess now we're just trying to kill the bot lane.
We live in a new meta, the meta of Rekkles, the meta of Jesiz playmaking, and maybe just a kill on a Nuclear. Wild Growth keeping him alive. Nuclear wants to turn this back, but Rekkles is still healthy. Leap out, Featherstorm the flash! Rekkles, can he make it out? This has been such an aggressive play. Can he get the double? Rekkles! It's gonna be traded back. Oh no, Jesiz! Coming in, Janko's gonna get knocked back as well. I can't believe that this is going to work. Jesiz is holding on to his life. No! Traded back now. Febi is here as well. It is a bloodbath on the bottom side. Everything is going everywhere. And that's in the end. Nope, Febiven trying to get some damage down. That's gonna close it out.
4 kills go in the favor of Fnatic. We were wondering what Fnatic was trying to do, and they knew all along, we can kill Nuclear and Chei. We know our team is coming to support us, and they bring all 4 members down. They get 4 kills, and somehow Fnatic come out ahead in the trade.
That was such a risky play setup. Let's look at the replay. Let's see the replay here. So the 2v2 in itself is fine, but you're near the tower. H2K can react first. TP gets interrupted by sOAZ. Look here at Jankos' ulti after Rekkles flashes for the kill. He should die now, but the ulti completely misses from Jankos. He did not expect the aggressive flash forward from the Xayah. So instead of this being a 1-for-1 trade, it ends up now actually being Fnatic winning it.
Absolutely insane. Rekkles, just a beautiful diving machine.
But it just requires so much trust as well from the top side of Fnatic, because if sOAZ wasn't in Mega Gnar and he could not interrupt Odo and that TP, that's when things go horribly wrong. But H2K felt confident that they could swing that around. They also thought that maybe Jankos and Febiven would get there in time, but everything just came together, and you have to argue, like, that was pretty good coordination from the side of Fnatic.
Oh, I'm by no means arguing against the execution of the actual play. I'm just saying the call itself was extremely risky. Had that ulti landed from Jankos, if he actually saw the Xayah right in front of him, it would have been just a 1-for-1 trade, and Fnatic could not have used the big advantage just yet. But that doesn't matter, because they nailed it.
All comes in, Syndra all traded back just to bully Febiven away from the tower. But the creep wave is deleted, and that means H2K can hold on for now. Jez is happy to heal up the team. Ardent Sensor completed means that the entire team is empowered as well. And Xayah and Syndra are going to make short work of yet another wave. No calling for Febiven. It's going to be tough to clear this one out.
And now we get that fed Xayah in the mid lane to try and push the tower down. They get a bit more damage on it. Caps is fairly low, though, in the back, and they probably have to just respect the rest of H2K. But with sOAZ moving down, they feel confident.
And Fnatic are fine just putting pressure on because they know that the Mountain Drake is spawning in about 40 seconds. They've already got themselves the first Infernal, and that's a very easy objective to very quickly rotate down and take without H2K being able to contest. So I think that Fnatic, whether they get the early tower or not, is still fine because there's plenty of things for them to play around.
Using Rekkles now for their wave clear as well to just keep mid lane pushed in, more damage on it. At the moment, they will get the tower as well, and this is what we expected before when they pushed out the bottom lane with sending Xayah towards mid. Chei, you recall right in front of him.
Body slam, move forward. Chei is slowed up. Is now set to get taken down. We'll move forward, but Broxah just going to grab that one. Big misstep from the side of H2K.
Exactly right, Drakos. No need to back in the middle of your own jungle. Fnatic very quick to punish. Chei gives away his life, makes it even easier for Fnatic to move up to that Drake. And we now have to wonder, is H2K starting to fall apart? We know that they struggle when they start to fall behind. Can they adapt when they are at this kind of a deficit?
We'll lose this Drake for now. What we've seen different from Fnatic in this game compared to the last one was Broxah getting that early gank in mid. So it was actually Caps who could start leaving the lane first. It was Febiven who was stuck in the mid lane after the roams happened. And Caps have gone bot lane multiple times now, picking up kills. 3-0 Syndra. Only top lane at the moment is where H2K seems to have any sort of pressure, and that's why they're going there again.
Moving forward. sOAZ nice sidestep, comes out, 3 stacks goes in, ult connects, no chance to transform quite yet. Needs to use an ability just to heal up, but now the equalizer, burning him down. Odoamne comes in as well. Jankos beautifully taking the tower, but surprise, surprise, here comes Caps. Oh God, Odoamne just ripped through as well. Beautiful movement from the mid laner on Fnatic.
And you can see that sOAZ is fine with this trade because Caps is now at 5-0-0. We talked so much about how Fnatic, they have the options to play through their other carries. They have the ability to rely on their mid laner, and so far Caps is stepping up. Yes, he's getting help, but he is auto-utilizing that lead and spreading it across the map.
H2K is trying to all in here. They know how risky this play is because their mid laner literally can't see the enemy mid laner. So they're just all inning for a kill and hoping at least one of them makes it out. But Caps walks up and secures 2 very easy kills. And fun fact, Syndra for Caps this split is undefeated. 5-0 in the regular season. He beat also Misfits with the Syndra in the semi-final, and it's a champion where now playing around him, at least in the start, seemed to have really unleashed him in this game.
And once again, this is the win condition we were looking for Fnatic in draft phase, a lane to play around, somewhere they could set it up. And Broxah, yes, maybe not always the most confident first initiator, but more than confident enough to follow up and so many of those early plays to build advantages.
But it's also a big difference as well coming into game 2 that H2K did not have the same sort of playmaking support that they had in game 1. Remember that Chei was a big part of why Febiven was able to get such a massive lead. And Jankos on the Sejuani, yeah, it's not the great early game jungler, but when you have that much utility, you also stack that with someone like a Rakan, and then you have the damage of a Corki, it makes for easy ganks in the mid. But Febiven, he didn't have that same kind of pressure, and you combine that with a bit of early pressure from Broxah, and this early game is just so different for the side of H2K.
And it's definitely looking like everything is going in the favor of Fnatic. 20 minutes in, we got that 5K gold lead, 2 dragons and 3 towers backing them up. Only 4 kills and 0 towers on the side of H2K, and you can see from Rekkles pushing in that most recent tower that Chei and Nuclear cannot comfortably stand up against Rekkles at this point in the game.
H2K's comp here is built around team fighting. So it's what we see on the Fnatic side. Problem is, on the Fnatic side, there are 2 big tanks in the front. Currently, while they're not overly fed by any means, they are still going to be very hard to kill. On the side of H2K.
Ironic, considering that.
Yeah. There we go, H2K, hard to kill. But the fact that Jankos is the only front line on H2K makes it even harder now to team fight.
sOAZ continuing to get aggressive. Febiven trying to make his way out, but the stun from Syndra is just too long range. That's going to be 1 pick. Got to check back in on the fight, though. sOAZ trying to turn this one back around. Wants a kill on Odoamne so desperately, but the locket from Jankos is going to save the day.
So Jankos there to support his top laner, but not his mid. And now that they know where Jankos is, they feel confident to just start off the ban.
Moment of truth. This was the breaking point for H2K when they had the Baron stolen away. Will it be the breaking point for Fnatic in absolute control? They are going to pull off the Baron in the end. They're willing to give it up. Odoamne teleports into the middle of the team. I don't know if it was the right call. No, Zanya's finished. They're trying to heal up. Caps is still alive. Rekkles is still dishing out the damage. Nuclear's trying to make it out to safety, but in comes the ultimate. Rekkles hungry for blood, and he's going to get one.
Fnatic, after getting that kill in mid lane, goes straight for the Baron, knowing they can turn around and take the 4v4 team fight. The Rumble ulti was down from the fight in the bottom lane against sOAZ. Fnatic are going for it again. H2K are still around.
Have to try to take something away. Getting lower. 2K health and dropping. All the pressure is on Broxah. Jankos looking to come over the wall. No Cassio, no Miasma, nothing to stop them. Fnatic, they're not going to take the risk. They're just going to let go of this Baron. H2K, though, trying to punish them as they retreat.
I like the respect being shown from Fnatic. They say, you know what, Jankos, we know what happened to you guys once you had that Baron stolen away. So instead, we're just going to back off. We don't need this Baron right now. We have a healthy gold lead. And H2K, they successfully stop it from dropping, and they will get themselves a tier 1 in the middle lane.
I mean, good call from H2K as well, under a lot of pressure right there, losing that top laner. We see the first trade in the bottom lane. This is where Odoamne's ulti will be used on getting that kill here against sOAZ, the 1v1. And Jankos showing up is probably a little bit unexpected here for the Gnar. And obviously that is why it becomes a 2v1 and a kill for H2K. But meanwhile, the Lucian just died mid.
And I want you to keep track of, oh yeah, so this is where Febiven will also end up losing his life. He's not expecting the, surprise Gragas from over the wall. No vision available for the side of H2K. And with your Lucian at such a deficit, things are becoming very difficult for H2K, but this is the part where I really wanted to keep your eyes on Broxah and how he utilizes his ultimate. This is very much what we typically expect from the team fighting jungler from Fnatic. Look at the knock up into the shot, into the ultimate, onto Nuclear, just chunking him out of the fight and allowing Rekkles to just dive onto the front line, not being afraid of anything from the side of H2K and allowing Fnatic to win that big fight.
Good look for Fnatic. Confidence as they get further into the game. The gold lead continues to grow, 6K in their favor. Looking to get a similar size one we saw from H2K in game 1. So while H2K may have fallen apart after their first loss against G2, it doesn't look like Fnatic are going to give them the same luxury. Still fighting back with everything they have, adapting in the pick and ban phase, and it's definitely paying off. And once again, we find ourselves in a situation where all eyes are on H2K. Can you turn this around? Can you stay focused? Can you find a way back into this game without giving up anything else?
I feel like this has been one of the games where we look back at regular season Fnatic and we see the individual skill on the lineup really shine through. Rekkles and Jesiz just dominating the 2v2 bottom lane. Broxah and Caps with synergy in the mid lane and actually securing that kill, and sOAZ went even slightly ahead in his lane as Gnar versus Rumble. So Fnatic were able to match and even beat some of the Fnatic H2K members here in these standard lanes.
But also, every time sOAZ ended up losing his life, there was always something that the rest of Fnatic were getting in exchange for it. He was never just being sold as a sacrifice for nothing. Fnatic were always trying to utilize his death and get some kind of an advantage out of it. Now Rekkles, he doesn't know that there's a jungler in that brush.
Does now. Ward comes out, they see Jankos on the top side. H2K at least trying to get some semblance of control over the Baron pit. But you can see on the bottom side of the map that sOAZ just continues to pressure in and threaten Odoamne every time he gets the chance. Steadily building towards that frozen mallet. It's only going to get harder from here.
But H2K's comeback mechanic is still the Baron. Like, until Fnatic actually secures the Baron itself and then use that to push down even more towers, then H2K is still feeling there's a way back in this game. Yes, it might rely on Fnatic being over-aggressive and not really respecting Jankos or the rest of H2K being around, but that is kind of what they're waiting for at the moment. They have this Rumble ulti that can be so powerful against the squishy backline of Fnatic if they can nail it and if they can land some CC to keep people in place.
And we're going to see a lot of the Baron vision dance now start to occur, because H2K, they have a lot of vision around the Baron area for the time being. A Fnatic, they're going to push up the waves, they're going to clear it out, and you're just going to see this back and forth. And ideally, what Fnatic want to do is they want to be in a position where H2K, they're restocking on wards and Fnatic can start to force the play, and H2K won't have that vision to try and facilitate the answer.
Right now, Fnatic also just waiting for sOAZ's teleport to be ready again, so he can sit bot lane, apply pressure, and still TP in for a Baron fight. It is up in just a few more seconds, so now Fnatic can get their control wards, move back out on the map, and start setting up this Operation Kill the Baron.
Or in this case, Operation Kill the Champions.
Kill whatever's in front of you.
Kill whatever's in front of you. So we have a fed Syndra and Rekkles and Jesiz just waiting in a brush. They know how the Baron dance is played. Now it's drawn out, and they're hoping that they can catch someone unsuspecting. Not going to be the case. They will see some vision get placed down. sOAZ, though, continue going to apply pressure. Febiven using the Blade of the Rune King. No Gnar on the way quite yet. Equalizer comes in. Febi, though, not going to follow up with the flash, and the rest of Fnatic take this. This is their cue. They know exactly where H2K is. Moving lower. No chance to steal it away. That's going to be the Baron coming in for Fnatic. TP comes in for Odo. But it's not going to mean a thing. Not going to do anything at all.
As soon as sOAZ had that TP, he just went all in the bottom lane, knowing that if 2 members show up from H2K to try and stop him, Baron will be secured by Fnatic. Jankos was not in a position to try and steal it and apply that pressure, and it simply means Fnatic secures it. sOAZ even stays alive in the bottom lane, and they're currently sitting with Baron buff, massive gold lead, 3 Drakes as well, and they are looking very strong.
And this is how Fnatic utilize that split pushing threat, with sOAZ always drawing pressure to the bottom lane. Febiven had to be sent down there, and a really good punish from Fnatic. And this is where things really do start to get a little too difficult for H2K in terms of the comeback. There is the possibility that Fnatic overextend, and H2K can use this big sort of team fight wombo combo that they have with the Sejuani, with the Rumble, to force a fight onto Fnatic, but it gets so much harder.
The first step for H2K in terms of their comeback was delay the Baron for as long as possible. Just delay, delay, delay. Don't let Fnatic secure it too early. That didn't really succeed, seeing as Fnatic got it now here at around the 26, 27 minute marks. Second one now for H2K is try and go full late game. Hope that you get to a point where your Tristana has 4 fully completed items with the Ardent Center and you can try and win late game fights, but that is difficult. They're once again just trying to delay the game, but this is why you can't lose that Baron so early on.
That's not a Victor or an Azir or an Orianna on the H2K lineup. That is a Lucian. Not a ton of wave clear outside of the Colin. Difficult to just stop this Baron buff in its tracks. The Fnatic more than content to keep up the slow siege. Caps looking for the multi-target stun, but poking at the members of H2K.
You can hear the crowd chanting for team fights. They want blood as Fnatic siege onto the base. They're going to take the tower.
So as is Gnar, no flash available though, means it's going to be pretty telegraphed if he wants to start the fight off. Slow, steady siege down, 1 inhibitor going to drop. H2K not going to find their fight today. Looking just to hold on for now as Fnatic retreat. And the thing I want to look at is I feel like as we've come into this mid-game, Fnatic have been playing it so cleanly, using that TP advantage. But when we look at how they got this lead, it was insane confidence in a high-risk play.
It was.
And I like that we're seeing both sides of Fnatic right now. Confidence, close out with a lead, and the insanity in an even game to go for that bot lane play.
Oh, they needed TP to be interrupted, the Sejuani ulti to miss, and it all happened, and it all worked. But even before that, they had already secured quite an advantage through the bottom lane and the mid lane as well. So would it not have been the end of the world?
It was a well thought out risk.
Yeah, I mean,
make the argument.
But you can never tell me that it was not a high risk play.
It was a very high risk play.
Well thought out high risk play.
It was one of those 50-50 plays. But
the winner tells the story, so it doesn't matter. Fnatic are pushing in with the Baron buff.
Yeah, history written by the victor. Fnatic looking to write their name in the books one more time. 3rd place in the European LCS. Jankos trying to lock him up. Chain CC not going to connect. That's a nice equalizer to start the fight off. Febiven looking for a little bit of blood. Not quite strong enough as Odoamne is knocked back. Jesiz healing up the entire lineup. Blade Caller!
That was spicy. That looked like Fnatic. They get 2 very swift kills. They now have an inhibitor taken down in the bottom lane. They've taken the top one as well. They're looking to take game 2.
Oh no, Nuclear. Goodbye. That is the end. Rekkles, unstoppable. What immense confidence coming in from Fnatic, but they really pulled that dive off in the end, almost making it look effortless. And now, gentlemen, it's just going to be the closeout right when H2K are surging, right when they're gaining confidence in that game 1. Fnatic come back here in game 2 and start to take it all away from them. In game 2, it's Fnatic who are going to find the win.
And it's funny how in the semi-final, Rekkles did not want to play Xayah. It went over to Misfits almost every single time. He picked the Ashe against it. And while it was an okay performance, he never really looked like he could carry from the early game. 2 Xayah games now where this Xayah has been winning the laning phase hard. This one even harder than before. And then it actually made it very easy for Broxah to go mid and say, yeah, I don't need to help bot lane. top lane sOAZ will be fine on an island. Go mid, set caps up, move caps to the bottom lane, and then use that advantage in the 2v2 to further snowball the game.
16,666 damage exactly coming in for Rekkles on that Xayah. Caps only at 1,300, 13.5. Even the Rumble, who just gets so much free damage from the equalizer in teamfights, was at 1,400. You can see Xayah well worth it now that Fnatic have decided to adapt it into the draft. Also, high Max Lord.
But also we've seen...
Why do we let fans in there?
Get them out of there.
But we've seen two teams perform at top level now. We saw game one, H2K. They came out the gate swinging. They played towards their style, invest a lot of resources into the middle lane, get Febiven ahead, and then just keep grouping up as a team and forcing fights all across the board, punishing the individual members of Fnatic, from which they were then able to close things out. Whereas in game two, H2K never really got that early lead. It was Fnatic who had immense pressure in the bottom lane, very similar to how they did in game one, but this time they were able to utilize it throughout the rest of the map, along with having caps in a favorable position. And I think that this mid lane is evolving into the core part of which team is able to succeed.
So we might see H2K also put more value on the Syndra and actually say like, hey, we do not want the enemy team to play it. Even though the draft from H2K here, if they played this game, just like reset the whole thing and played it again with exactly the same comps, it could look way different. Because it was based on some of these big individual plays that actually got Fnatic ahead and not necessarily them having a much superior draft in that sense.
Well, Fnatic came back with a dominant performance in game two. Let's get some insight from our analysts on that win.
Thank you very much, Drakos, and I think our analysts definitely shared Deficio's opinion on that. The draft wasn't bad, but Fnatic was just unchained straight from the start. And we want to take a look at the fight that started it all off. We had the emotional MVP interview with Rekkles at the start of the show, and you couldn't really dream of a better start, Zaboutine, than getting your carries a couple of kills early.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to actually start a game. Rekkles goes it like full ham on this flash, surprises Jankos with his ultimate and goes like till the end, which is absolutely perfect for Xayah, which has the slowest pathing into for her items. And Fnatic starts from this.
Yeah, they get a great start. They get kills not only on Rekkles, they get kills on the Syndra in the mid lane as well. So it starts off really well. And Yamato, you were telling me before this happened how much you did love the draft from H2K. You thought it showed adaptation, and you also love when they play the Lucian.
Yeah, I think H2K, draft-wise, were in a very good position. They took a massive risk because they revealed the Rumble and the Sejuani very early. If Fnatic decided to ban the Lucian, then all of a sudden you're stuck with a triple AP composition against a team that can stack a lot of magic resistance. The Lucian came in, they have a very strong early game with lanes you could arguably win, and also very good scaling, very good team fighting, good, well-rounded comp.
So tell me then, when you are a team with a good, well-rounded comp, but you have a Lucian in the mid lane, and this happens in a bot lane very early, how do you play from behind? How is it equipped to play from behind?
I think in a lot of cases, you know, the only thing that you can really rely on in this case is the Sejuani ultimate. And it's very hard to land the Sejuani ult if that's your only engage on top of a Syndra and on top of a Xayah.
There is something as well, is if you don't execute perfectly your fight, there is one Syndra that can burst both one of your ADC, and there's only one Lulu to protect. So you have to choose between your arm and your leg at some point in the team fights, which is very, very hard in terms of positioning. And I think Lucian couldn't apply the DPS H2K's coach expected at the beginning of the game.
I think that's very lovely put. And you say it, Syndra is very strong in these compositions, or when the team is ahead already. We're going to take a look at a little highlight reel from Caps and Syndra, brought to you by Acer Predator, because, you know, Fnatic, they were just incredibly unchained, and then that allows them to obviously roam up to that top lane, and Caps could do whatever he wanted.
Finally, we had some wards around mid lane. We got the early gank, the first blood into mid lane. Caps was unleashed. Every play, he was all over the place.
This one is absolutely lovely because he waits that much in a way that everybody goes in and cannot pull back at a good time with flash and cleanse at the same time, and then the whole backlane of Fnatic goes onto H2K's pack and do tons of damage, and at this point they lose the Baron.
Like he's pretty much doing Broxah's job. He's baiting in the enemy team. He's
Yeah,
the one
exactly,
in the front
exactly.
line. The previous game was the same with the Cassiopeia. He knows how to get maximum out of his champion in every team fight.
Yeah, he did it. You say he's doing Broxah's job, but Broxah's jungle proximity was almost 3 times that with 2 caps
Finally.
that of it was in game 1. And this is what you guys have been saying, right? Will they go for the side lane? No, it's all about that mid lane jungle proximity and about the way they play together.
Yeah, I think the meta is kind of simple. If you have the Gragas, you play the mid lane. If you have the Sejuani, you play the side lanes. And the first game, they just had a Gragas which was farming in the jungle and doing pretty much nothing. And at this point, we saw a composition well-rounded around the Syndra, and it was done well, actually.
Yeah. And like speaking about H2K, both games, I felt like H2K's bot lane just got completely demolished. I feel like they're getting pushed in at all times. This game, you could argue that the Lulu counter pick into the Janna gives them opportunity to push this matchup, but they didn't. They are stuck in that lane. And then you look at the mid lane, that's where Broxah was, and top lane, you have a Rumble Sejuani into a Gnar. He's gonna buy a Hex Drinker, he didn't, but he got a Merc Threads, and sOAZ is known for being like David Copperfield or David Blaine. He disappears, he knows how to escape these ganks and die at the right times in that sense. And I feel like that from the get-go is a hard situation to be in against Fnatic.
It is, and if we look at Fnatic, you guys said during game 1 they look disconnected, they don't look at the same page. So the big question is, did they just seem more connected because they were stomping and they were really far ahead early, or did you see more signs of improvement? Because it's easy to say that if you steamroll over your opponent.
I think that's the very first game I see Fnatic playing with the win condition of the meta, the current meta, in a very very well way, where the win against Misfits was their own style, all style well applied. So starting from that, if they can build on the top of the game they just made, they can 3-1.
All right, and I feel like that's the sentiment you guys had in the beginning of H2K. Loses one game, we have to wonder about their mental fortitude, right? And this is where we have to see it. Can they come back in the series? We will see, but Fnatic, they struck back and are looking to keep the ball rolling in game 3. That is coming up after the break.
I have to assume Fnatic has something cooked up, something up their sleeve coming into this game 2. Do not want to drop another game against H2K. Forward Bull is going to connect. That's a mini Gnar, so vulnerable to these dives.
I will kill him.
Mario partying his way out. sOAZ, can he make it the flash forward? Jankos going to get that kill. Rekkles is still healthy. Leap out. Featherstorm the flash. Rekkles, can he make it out? This has been such an aggressive play. Can he get the double? Rekkles! It's going to be traded back. Jankos beautifully taking the tower, but surprise, surprise, here comes Cabs. Oh, God, Odoamne just ripped through as well. Beautiful movement from the mid laner on Fnatic. Fnatic come back here in game 2 and start to take it all away from them. In game 2, it's Fnatic who are going to find the win.